Hello, everyone. Hope you're having a great weekend. As promised, a second video talking about measuring our movement. I have to be honest, this one is going to be a bit longer because I'm going to show some features in the Plantiga system and also talk about how I unraveled an Achilles tendinopathy and use data coming from Plantiga to help inform my decision making as I rehabbed from this. And it's pretty cool what I was able to obtain from this. So hopefully you'll be able to watch the entire video. If not, I'll post it on my website as well, so you can take a peek. But for now, let's get into it. So one of the big developments for me was understanding that I needed some more support, especially for my left foot. It goes back to some old injuries that I had, and previously used to wear orthotics back when it was all the rage. Stopped wearing orthotics and was wearing a minimalist shoe, and then realized using Plantiga that there were some pretty big asymmetries when it came to the mechanics and the motion of my foot. So through that, it led me to a Calgary company called Need. They make an off-the-shelf insole. I really like it, actually. It's just the right amount of support. It's quite supportive without being too rigid, if that makes any sense. And they were awesome because they hooked me up with a podiatrist, and we were able to actually cut out a little groove here, which allowed me to now take the Plantiga IMU and stick it in there. And now I've been able to use this measuring my running and looking at how I change over time. So let's dive into it a little bit, show you some of the new features as well with Plantiga, in addition to the fact that I got my Need insole and this cool way to now use this when I run as opposed to the stock insoles that come with Plantiga. So this is the summary of my run from today. I did just a little over 4 kilometers. You can see my symmetry 4.8%, just to the right side. And if we kind of break this down a little bit more, we can explore this run. Lots of cool new metrics coming out that actually were really fundamental to helping me understand where my issues were in terms of my foot mechanics and foot motion. So one thing to show you here is that Plantiga now has this thing called activity masking, and activity masking allows you to focus on the activity of interest when you, let's say, you did a run. Obviously you're going to walk to the sidewalk or walk to the track. Well, now you can start recording, and you'll see here in this shaded blue, that's actually where I was walking from my house out to the road. And I don't want that as part of my running metrics. So you'll notice that Plantiga now excludes that and shows me in the blue shading that that was actually not a run. It does it automatically. It's all through machine learning. And this is the raw acceleration tracing from my run, my 4 kilometer run. So you can see my speed over the run. You can look at my vertical landing acceleration and my vertical takeoff acceleration. Really interesting metrics here. And that's using, again, machine learning to know when my foot is hitting the ground and coming off the ground, and looking at the vertical acceleration. Looking at stride length over the course of the run and ground contact times. And you'll notice how symmetrical my ground contact times are. And that's going to play heavily into this discussion here around using the technology to help unravel, things like Achilles tendinopathies. Because not only can you do this on yourself with the Plantiga system, because they now have movement coaches which are breaking down your data and giving you insights and recommendations about what to do about it. But if you're a biohacker like me and you want to figure it out, nothing is better than this, because you can actually look at the data, see it for yourself, and start to experiment to see what's going to help fix your issues. Now, these are some other metrics here that are still in development. You'll notice it says DEV, so they're not fully released yet. But this was actually a really key part of me learning about my foot motion and understanding the things that were getting in the way for me. So here we've got a few of the foot motion parameters that are being extracted on the Plantiga platform. And I was able to see, sort of like you're seeing here at the end of my run, that things are starting to diverge a little bit. Well, back in May, when this whole issue started to unfold, there was some huge asymmetries in my foot motion. And just to give you a little orientation here, the orange line is my left, and the green line here is my right, and it's been smoothed, so you can kind of see the smoothed data. And obviously, if the green line is right on top of the orange, that means I'm perfectly symmetrical, and if they're diverging, that means one is different than the other. So this was very, very informative when I went back to my data back in May of 2021, when these problems started to emerge for me, which led me to realizing I needed more support and I needed to change my footwear. So from here, just want to show you some info around my ground contact time, looking at my ground contact time asymmetry. So I'm going to go to the trends page, and the trends page will go now for my runs, because this is actually showing my walks. You can see here, you can also do sprinting and jumping as part of your activities, which is kind of cool. So here is, going on since me starting to use the system, looking at things like my pace, the distance I've run over time, my cadence, my stride length, all those cool parameters, my ground contact times. But I want to focus on my asymmetries, and specifically, I want to look at my ground contact time asymmetry. So when we look at our normative database, now we've got probably about 140 runners who've ran, and we're able to measure what's typical. Generally speaking, the asymmetries and ground contact times are quite low. And you'll see that reflected here in my kind of healthy state, which I'm going to highlight in on. This is sort of my pre-injury state. And you'll notice that there's a little bit of variability run to run, but you'll see that by and large, my ground contact time asymmetries are around 0 over the course of my runs. Of course, there are some runs here that are a little bit more so or less than others, but on average, and I can show my mean here, it's going to show that my asymmetry over this time period is like 0.84%, which is pretty typical of what we see. Now, as we're going along over time, and we're now starting to hit my problem time, you'll notice that right in and around here, we're talking in around April, boom, it starts to change. And I'm just going to highlight in on this region here, because here is where I'm experiencing so many issues with my Achilles. And one of the things that absolutely jumps out at this time is now my mean asymmetry in ground contact time has jumped from about 0.84% to now, if you look here, guys, it's jumping to probably around a mean asymmetry of 2.5%. And you'll even see some of these asymmetries where are now getting into the 3 and 4% difference side to side. That means I'm spending 3 to 4% more time on my left side than my right side. And you don't need me to tell you which side was my problem. It was my left Achilles that was giving me tons and tons of issue. So as I was breaking down these runs, I was able to actually understand, looking at my data, that there were some quite large discrepancies in terms of the motion of my foot. And specifically, I'm talking about all of these metrics that you see here listed down the right-hand side. Now, remember, these are in development. So Plantiga has not released them officially. I'm kind of lucky. I get to preview some of these metrics before they become live metrics for the consumers. But when I was going through my data, it became very, very clear that there were some issues. Now, if you remember back to the very first run I broke down, which was from today, you'll notice that most of my metrics were quite symmetrical, meaning the orange line was on top of the green. But check out this run here. This run is back from, I think, May 22nd, where I was just in the peak of pain here, and things were really crappy. So you'll notice that I'm very, very asymmetrical in terms of my foot motions, looking at my foot, my vertical takeoff and landing acceleration. Also, as we scroll down, you'll notice that some of these metrics, looking at the motion of my foot, are revealing some pretty big differences from one side to the other. Obviously, some of these are looking pretty good, but things like this are consistently higher on the left compared to the right, which is going to give us some indication that there is something going on. And my guess at the time was I needed more stability in the foot. So I did two things. I got a pair of Hoka running shoes, and these look a little crazy, but they were actually quite nice. They made a big difference in terms of a bit more cushion, and they're a bit beveled. So I was getting a bit more support, especially medial-lateral support, and I found these insoles. And so this was the initial trick here, was being able to find a way to get my Plantiga IMU into my insole, because I couldn't figure out a way to do that until I got some help from Need. So big shout out to them. Thank you so much for helping me. That was a big help for me, because it helped me figure out, with this and my new running shoe, was it actually going to make a difference in terms of my running? And sure enough, when we start to break down what the effects were over time. Now, remember, throughout this time, I'm also doing things like strengthening my ankle. I'm working on, foot control. But I've got my insole, and I've got my new running shoe. And if we scroll down here, and I'm talking, this is sort of now recent data where I've been able to highlight in on what this has done to my running. What do we see? But we actually observe that my running ground contact time asymmetries are now actually starting to recover back down to what they used to look like. So what we're seeing is that as a result of a change in my footwear and in my, obviously the support I'm giving myself, we're back down to the baseline mean ground contact asymmetry of about 0.54%. So it tells me that I'm on the right track. And this is just an example of where we're going now with the worlds of technology, because we can use technologies like Plantiga to build the baseline profile, monitor how people are moving. And Plantiga is also using movement coaches as a part of their business. And they're actually hooking you up with a movement coach who can help break this down, like I did for myself, because I got some expertise in the area. But they'll actually assign you a movement coach. They'll help you learn how to do this and help you understand how you move. So very cool. And stay tuned, because there's lots of stuff coming down the pipeline. But there is a breakdown of all the new stuff coming out with Plantiga. Very exciting that you can actually, get this sort of an orthotic now or insole and be able to use the Plantiga IMU, which is something I was really excited about. And some pretty compelling data about how you can use this to improve outcomes for yourself. Help you improve your movement quality and remove those performance inhibitors and get you to your full maximum performance potential.